Hey folks, I'm back again to talk about this transfer of the aquarium. Obviously this hasn't happened yet, and I've added something else. I've got a 55 that looks really nice, kind of like right now, right here. Not so much from the living room on the other side where you can see the back of it and stuff. And what's in here is kind of the subject of today's video. So part one of getting this tank set up was actually kind of gathering some materials that I need. And so I'm starting with breaking down my old buddy, the 56-gallon column tank upstairs. So that's one of my oldest tanks that I have that was still set up that I made on YouTube. I remember putting that tank together, and then we immediately went on a vacation and stuff, and I was down at the beach. It's been a great tank too, and it's grown up a lot of really big plants that have gone on to take part in many of my other aquariums, including the one that I'm about to change up again. So if you take a quick look right here, that's all the plant material. In fact, it's not quite, In fact, it's not quite all of it, because I've got even more in the buckets down here. There's a couple of buckets that I just couldn't fit everything in there without crowding it out too much. And that sort of put a timer on the next step. So breaking down the 56-gallon was kind of a lot of work. I did have a canister filter, so I was able to kind of just take the whole filtration system and move it to this other tank. And that allowed me to not have to decide where all the little fish go right away. Now, I do want to get them rehomed and stuff before I start putting big fish in for the most part. I think there's a couple of fish that will probably graduate into bigger tanks, especially some of the older Siamese algae eaters can run with these guys, I think, pretty good. So I caught out as many fish as I could out of the 56-gallon, and I just kind of put them in buckets. A lot of them I did rehome already to a lot of other aquariums around. But for the most part, I took most of them and I put them back in here. Kind of the weirdest move that I have is I have a Raphael catfish. I don't even know if I've ever shown him on the channel because he just barely appears. Like I see him once every 5 years or so. It's a catfish that I put in because at the time I had a centipoma in that tank, and a 50 centipoma eventually came to live in this when I first set it up, and then he passed away sometime after that. But yeah, so I had bought this fish because it was one that he couldn't eat, and it just immediately went and hid, and then it stayed hidden for almost a decade now. I couldn't believe he was still alive, but when I pulled the wood out, apparently that's probably where he was hiding. Anytime I've seen him, he's been wedged up into the driftwood someplace. So I imagine he jumped off and then he tried to crowd out the little pleco cave that I had in there for my longfin pleco. So I felt really bad for the pleco, but while they were both plugged up, I went ahead and transferred them over to their forever home, or forever is forever for now home, I guess. But they found a nice home in the 25-gallon tank, and I think that there's a good place for both of them there. I guess. I'm not even sure what this fish eats. I've never seen it come out to eat or anything else. The only time I find it is in weird situations like this. I'm not even sure what he looks like in the front. All I saw was this big tail sticking out the end. And I spent a long time wondering if the pleco was okay, kind of trapped in there. But eventually he came out, and he's now wandering around the new tank and eating algae, and seems to be okay. I'm really not looking forward to catching all these fish out of the tank, and I've sort of over-prepared a little bit. I went out and I got this today, which is absolutely the biggest net I've ever had. It's long, too. I've got some nets that are pretty big. They're pretty large nets, and they probably would work with some effort, but it's not quite, they don't have this length. I mean, this thing, I could go all the way, chase them all the way to the other side of the tank if I wanted to. But I'm hoping I don't have to do that a whole lot. I'm hoping that it'll work out. The way I do catch these things generally is I'll drain the water down as low as I can, and then I start trying to net them out. Or I might try to take a swipe at them and see how smart they are. Sometimes at least the first one or two I can catch before they figure out what I'm doing. But I'm not sure I want to try to catch Mr. Tubes this way. So I've kind of, although it cost me a bit of money, this stuff's more expensive than I realized, but I bought an end cap and a 3-inch pipe, or like a little 2-foot section of 3-inch pipe. And I'm just going to put this in there as I start to net things. And what I imagine will happen is as the hiding spaces deteriorate, he will run into here, and then I'm just going to grab this out and stick it over in the other aquarium. These guys are going to have to tough it out in this 55-gallon, which will be much less aquarium than they're used to, but it does have the Awase Biomaster on there that's been running for a long, long time. So hopefully it's got the bio load it needs to just continue. And they won't have to do it for a long time. I'm going to probably have this thing turned around inside of a day or two, is what I'm hoping to do. So, because everything's on a timer, I've got plants just dying in this bucket, probably, I imagine, anyway. But they are rooted plants. The rooty plants are all in a bucket, and I want to get them into some ground someplace. Those crypts tend to melt and become a big mess, especially if you leave them too long and shock them too much. So I'm hoping to get all of that settled very, very quickly. Doing the substrate for this tank is going to be quite a lot of effort. So I'm not sure how many of these videos there'll be for a setup. I don't want to milk a setup by like making video after video, but honestly, tearing down that tank was a lot of work. This 55 I've actually had sitting empty in my garage for a long time, and I sort of have been keeping it as an emergency tank in case there was ever a problem with this. I wanted to keep something that was big enough to put my big fishes in, especially Mr. Tubes. I think the rainbows could tough it out in like this 40-gallon or so. They wouldn't be as happy in this cube tank because they couldn't run back and forth as much. But yeah, but I could at least put them in these other places. But if I put Mr. Tubes in any other tank, he's pretty much just going to eat everything in that tank. I don't even really want to keep him in this 55 very long. I've got a couple of lids on there, and they seem pretty sturdy, but I've heard him whack the top of these pretty good, and I kind of wish there was some heavier glass to kind of keep him pinned in. So all that's just going to be inspiration to work even faster. I've got the Seachem fluorite to lay down. Several people have asked me about undergravel filters. I did actually buy 2 of these. These are for a 55-gallon. And obviously I've got a sump and everything to actually filter this. So this would just be sort of a supplemental thing to try to do or mimic some of the success I've had with these other aquariums. I'm not sure I want to go with it. On one hand, I've already got them in my hand. I got no other place to put them. I could return this to Amazon maybe, or I could just use it. I'm not going to put in oil dry or go look for more clay. I think that basically this fluorite dark that I'm going to use is all clay anyway, and it would probably work in a similar way, so I don't feel like I need to add more to it. In the past I have, but I also had a big bag of it to use. Now it's gone, and I don't want to go buy more. And I'm pretty sure I've got what I need anyway. The other thing I'd like to do is save some percentage of the substrate here, and what I think I'm going to do is kind of, I'm going to collect this substrate up. I'm going to kind of push it aside. I might lay these down, although I'm not sure what I'm going to use to kind of like suck the, to be the slow suction that I would normally typically use. I thought about maybe wedging one corner under this background, or maybe cutting a little notch and kind of sticking this under the background, and it would just kind of give the water someplace to go. As things deteriorate, and here the laws of thermodynamics should just bring water slowly through here anyway. But I don't know if it'll be at too slow a rate unless I add something to mechanically kind of suck it out of there, like a, you know, maybe like a hose with a bubbler in there or something like that. I really don't want to throw stuff like that into here. So here's my quandary, and if you answer right now, you'll have time to either stop me or encourage me to move forward with this. So go ahead and comment down below. Let me know, plenums or no plenums inside the 210. I'm not sure it would make a huge difference either way, to be clear. But what do you want? The other problem that I've had in this tank recently is one of my pumps died. I had this pump, and Awase has sent me another recirculation filter, so I'm going to be adding that in, and I guess when I do the setup for the tank, I'll break that out and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But I think whenever the circulation gets low in here, I start to develop cyanobacteria. I've actually treated it in this tank twice before in the long lifespan of this thing. So I'm going to do it again. I've got a little bit, and I was able to do a water change and just actually kind of suck most of it out of there, just straight out to the yard. But I think I'm going to do a little treatment so no bit of that ends up, because I'm going to try to recycle as many of these plants as I can. It's going to be step one, catch all these, well, step one is pull all these plants out and all the fish out, put them in buckets and stuff and set it aside. And catch all the fish, I put them in here, and then I start pulling the plants out of here. And then I start pulling or any plants that I'm going to use out of there, and I kind of set them aside. And then I've got to take all the, and start pulling all the substrate out and save any of that I'm going to put aside. Lay the plenums down or not. Lock it in with that substrate, or make a little small island at the very bottom of the tank made out of the old substrate. And then I'm going to start layering in the fluorite dark. Hopefully I've got enough. I've got 14 bags of fluorite dark to cover the bottom of this. So I hope that that's enough. I think it will be. If it's not, I'll just make a trip out to my local pet store and figure that out. I don't want to traumatize the fish too much and treat the water, so I think I might go in the order of, catch the fish out, treat the water, then drain everything the next day. That'll give me more time to do the more laborious parts, like pulling these plants out and like really cleaning it up. Cleaning this tank's, it shouldn't be too bad. I'm not gonna go hog wild trying to get the background back to the way it was before. I'm not sure if anybody's got a great idea for how to clean up my background. Like I thought of a bunch of stuff, like maybe I could dump some peroxide on there or something like that. It's something to clean it that wouldn't like permanently damage anything. I'm not really worried about, saving good bacteria off it or anything crazy like that. I'd like to clean it up a bit. I've got a big brush. They sell these for like cleaning cars and stuff at our local hardware store. And I've never used it for that. It's only ever been just to clean the background of this tank. But I use this quite a lot, and it works pretty good. But boy, is it a lot of work. A lot of elbow grease. I'd love to, especially if I'm going to drain this anyway, and I've got that opportunity to like put something on it to help clean it. I'd really love to do that. So any advice you have for that, non-toxic kind of stuff, let me know. And folks, that's it. It's just kind of a status update. I'm moving along kind of slowly, but I'm pulling it all together. I'm sure it's going to happen really soon. And when that happens, I'll be there filming it for you. Until next time, follow your bliss and keep a clean tank. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.